Hey, welcome back, P-Town. This is Andy Q, and I'm here live with Larry Ortega.
What's up, P-Town?
All right, so today we're going to do a little bit of civic engagement and voter education kind of stuff, you know what I mean? We brought Larry in because he called me the other day and talking about Measure P, and I didn't know too much about it. I read a little bit of the information, but, you know, sometimes when we read these ballots, there's a lot of questions that still are unanswered. And
Confusing,
the way they write it can be confusing, you know, pro or against. So we're having you on to help us kind of navigate us through
Sort through it.
what's going on with Measure P.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you, Andy, and everything you do here, man. Your work here is so incredibly important, and thank you for the opportunity to come on and kind of share a perspective that I think that the public needs to know, you know, with regard to, you know, this increase in taxes. Measure P is just that. It wants to eliminate the sunset, which is meaning that the tax was actually going to fall off at a particular date. And now they're saying that they don't want that to happen. And they framed it in the context, the wording of the particular measure, P as in Paul, is framed in the context of that if you don't vote for it, that your 911 services are going to go away, which is not completely accurate, you know, because if you think about where our taxes go, they go into the general fund. Right. This is not specifically just for 911 services. It's for everything. And, you know, my thing, before I get too much deeper into that, I want to kind of frame it a little bit in terms of how I feel about taxes and how I felt initially when this was introduced, because this is a continuation from a 2018 ballot measure.
Yes, 2018.
That was successfully passed. And when the mayor of Pomona had originally introduced it, I remember I was there at the Democratic Club. I was in attendance that day, and the Democratic Club for Pomona Valley was voting on whether or not, in 2018, whether or not they were going to endorse it. And, you know, immediately when I see new taxes, you know, I look at it as a kind of as a cop out, you know, and I don't see, I mean, economically speaking, when you take people's money away by more taxes, you kind of hurt yourself, right? And you hurt the local businesses, and you have less to spend, and, you know, the businesses have, you know, less income as a result of it, right? So the whole idea of taxing to shore up a shortfall of, you know, potential challenges that the city may have in their budget, it has to be like way down on the, you know, list of, okay, what are we going to do about this? You know, particularly since we have, you know, a lot of innovative ideas. You know, you go to the city council meetings and you hear people talk about having the city utilize the city right now owns 24% of all the property in the city of Pomona.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so almost a quarter, right?
Yeah.
And you see downtown Pomona, a lot of undeveloped spaces, you know, been that way for how many years, right? Almost decades, maybe even, you know?
And that's because of negligent landlords, right? Like I know there's two specific companies.
Well, and not in the case of the city, right? The city-owned property, right? There are those guys, right? Downtown,
I think
obviously.
when we think about Lake Pomona.
Right, yeah,
right.
Lake Pomona.
Charles Group, I think they're called.
Right, yeah. And, you know, you have those, obviously, but you talk about what is in the city's sphere of influence and what they can do immediately with the property that they own.
Yes.
And there's been several groups that have come up and say, why don't we do more farming? Why don't there be incentive for, like, kind of grow your own, do your stuff, you know, help supply the local food marts and whatever with food that we can grow. And a lot of people are trying to turn to that, particularly with, you know, inflation these days. You know, food is, because it's in a monopolistic state, and you get most of your food from, you know, one or two, three different sources.
Yes.
You know, they are able to charge whatever they want. And if you know, these groups were allowed to flourish and come in and the city would support them, there's an economic model there that has been proven across the globe. I mean, they do it in Spain, they do it in Cleveland, you know, and they do it in other parts of South America. I mean, there's plenty of models that show when the city participates and supports the community and the public and, you know, entrepreneurs in this food growing process, that everybody is benefiting. You got, you know, the whole health thing.
Yes.
And in fact, it's something that I had worked on back in when, I guess, 2016, I want to say, when it would be 2016 when I was working with this thing called Pomona Valley Verde.
Okay.
And we were talking about maybe bringing hydroponics. We were going to duplicate a model that was successful in Cleveland, where they were growing on maybe 3 acres of land lettuce inside, and it was hydroponically grown, and they were supplying all the local hotels and supermarkets with this lettuce. And we were talking to the CEO. In fact, there were some people here in Pomona, professors at Cal Poly. We were like, hey, let's try to make this happen. And we weren't able to get airborne on it.
Right.
It was an idea kind of before its time, I think.
Before its time. But I got to tell you, Larry, some of the things that you have said, I can envision that's the type of future that I would like to see my sons grow up in Pomona, is where green spaces and parks and community gardens are accessible, and they're an intricate part of our community where we eat healthy, nutritious, foods that are grown within, a small carbon footprint.
Absolutely.
And we also get to hang out and enjoy, being under a tree, the kids running around, and the smell of barbecue again out in the park, right?
Yeah. It's a beautiful thing, and you look at it, only in the United States do we have like the big giant refrigerators. I was listening to a podcast by Jimmy Dore. I don't know if you follow him at all, but he was doing something with Dr. Drew.
Yes.
Who's famous podcaster, was on KRQ for a long time, the Dr. Drew show, you remember. Anyways, he was sharing it during this podcast with Jimmy Dore. They were sharing that the refrigerators out in Europe are like a third of the size that we have here in the United States, and that's because we're the only ones eating all this processed food. They eat more healthy. They go to the market every day, right? They don't need a big refrigerator. Yes. Because they only need, a little bit, right?
I've experienced that for myself.
You saw it.
Backpacked through Europe, right? Stayed in hostels, and yes, the refrigerators for the most part were a lot smaller than American refrigerators, right? And they didn't have the extra freezer in the garage and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Same kind of concept, man. And it's like, and there's people here in Pomona, man, that are ready to do this. They want to make it happen. So that's one example. Yeah. Another example is, there's certain policy issues that when back again, it was around 2016, 2017, 2018, I was very engaged in trying to bring an idea that I saw working, again, other spaces in Spain and South America and Cleveland, where the city has a certain amount of spend, right? So the city spends $400 million every year.
$400 million.
Yeah, the city spends $400 million. City of Pomona spends $400 million every year, right? What I was proposing to the purchasing manager or purchasing director at that time, Mr. Mowbray, I think it is. At that time, I was telling him that to explore a policy where we would commit a certain percentage of that spend towards Pomona businesses, because they're going to spend the money anyway, right? And instead of just being willy-nilly about like where they're spending those dollars, to really say, okay, let's give Pomona right of first refusal, Pomona businesses right of first refusal on these spends, maybe 10% only, or 15%.
Yes.
And so what you have is a situation where you're actually recycling Pomona dollars back into Pomona. So it's Pomona tax dollars being spent on Pomona businesses providing Pomona services to Pomona.
So that makes me think about like the Chamber of Commerce hosting a community-wide training on how businesses can fill out that vendor form and become vendors of the city.
Right.
So that process is already done. Because again, there's a process, right? They won't spend money unless there's paperwork.
Correct.
Right. Involved in it.
Right.
So to get our community business owners that paperwork, that's half the process, right?
Exactly.
And the other process is just championing.
Championing the cause, championing the idea. Right.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So, for example, the school district in Pomona, before our current superintendent, the previous superintendent, back in, I want to say I forget what the year was, maybe 2018.
Richard Martinez.
Yeah. Yes. So he was, at that time, the school district had a spend of about $85 million.
85, okay.
In construction, right? Okay. Just the construction spend by itself, right? And that's conservatively speaking, and that's just me eyeballing it, right? There's nothing official or anything that I want to be, say, let's audit that.
Don't quote me on this.
Right, don't quote me on it. But it's something that, I went through every single agenda, and I found, everything that said construction, and I just put it on a spreadsheet, and I added it all up, and it came out to $85 million.
Yes.
On that spreadsheet, it also showed, okay, how many businesses were Pomona businesses that were a part of that. Right. And you know how many were Pomona businesses that were part of the construction spend that year? Zero. Right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of construction companies here in Pomona that could be participating in that. Right. So I brought that issue up. But here's the good news. Here's the good part, right? I need to share this part, is that after I brought that up, staff there made a purposeful effort to try to be more inclusive of Pomona businesses. Right. And it ended up that they ended up doing a contract. I don't know this for sure, but I heard that they ended up doing a contract with Elias Construction Company that's right there on East End and 9th Street. You know where they are, right? Right in the corner right there. Right. And so now they were going to be part of, that spend.
Yes.
So now you're looking at and I helped, I talked to Mr. Elias himself, and I said, this is kind of what I'm thinking about. And, and that's all I was able to do. I wasn't able to kind of like hold their hand and get them down the road on it, but just introducing the idea that what if Pomona businesses were part of a focused effort on the spend from, not only the school district, but the city and the hospital and Cal Poly and Western U. And what if all of a sudden now, just a certain percentage, we're not saying, spend all your money, right?
It's 3% of $1 million.
3% of 400 million, right? Or 10%, whatever it is, it creates a situation where you're actually recycling dollars. And so there's more innovative ideas like that, Andy, that are not even being addressed. It's like we're immediately going to the let's tax everybody,
Larry, that the other day I went to a meeting at the Pomona Unified School District where the Chamber of Commerce was involved, and they were also teaching local businesses on how to, go through the process of being a vendor for the school district.
That's awesome, man.
What you're talking about, but I mean, again, 2008. I mean, this is 2023.
2018. 2018.
So all those years have passed,
right?
And it seems like it's finally coming
to
fruition. Utilizing again our Chamber of Commerce to really educate, businesses in the community on how to navigate the system, right?
Right.
Because it's kind of difficult navigating the system. Oh my gosh,
right?
Man. You got all your other stuff
incredibly intimidating,
that you got to deal with, you know what I mean? And then to one more layer, but a good city provides its community members education, public service education, man. They communicate. Again, it's like working together, then we work for you. Right.
Well, because you do. Right?
Yeah.
You do work, as a city, they do work for us,
exactly.
Because we pay their taxes. We pay our taxes, and that's.
But we would say that in maybe our city in the past or many other cities, it doesn't always feel that way to a community member that they work for us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely, it doesn't, and most people don't recognize it that way. People don't look at it unless you're like engaged and you're there and you realize, well, wait a minute, those guys actually work for me. Unless you're doing it like that and you've been doing it for many years, like I have, like you have, we have that understanding. But most people on the outside are just going to work, coming home, they pay the bills, they feed their families. They raise their children.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, the city will never go for that or something like that. They don't understand it. It's not it's kind of the reverse. It seems like we work for the city when in fact it's but I'm so happy to hear that. When did that go down with the Pomona Unified School District?
I want to say within the last 6 months.
Oh my gosh, that's so awesome, man, to hear. And it's like we need to do more. That's what the city of Pomona could do.
Shout out to Monica, the Chamber of Commerce.
Right.
Keep those community workshops going on so that we're better connected, right?
Keep it going, yeah. I'm glad that they were able to take that torch and run with it, man. I mean, I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it was an exciting meeting. Both of them weren't, but you get a lot of information, right? They navigate through to the PowerPoint on how to make the connections and what forms and and there was a lot of in the Pomona Unified meeting. There was construction people and they were, again, a variety of businesses.
Right,
You know, I think more like catering. You know, if you're gonna cater for teachers or whatever, then keep it in house. But yes, I didn't realize that much money can go in just to construction and things of that nature.
And so now you have a situation where, let's say you do a 10% commitment to, solely Pomona construction companies, right?
Right.
If you're spending $85 million, that's $8.5 million more in revenue that the city is recycling, within its own borders. And it's not a new concept, man. I mean, different communities, do this everywhere. The African American community does it, Jewish community does it, and it's not a new concept, but it's something that we could formally, make happen in the city, in lieu of, saying, okay, well, we just need to start taxing everybody. There needs to be more innovation. It's
innovation
here.
is a lot better than taxation, I tell
right?
you. Right?
Oh, yeah,
innovation.
absolutely.
Yeah, and I think just by pivoting a little bit, seeing things in a different way, we could probably avoid a lot of these taxes. I'm a father of two young children. Me and my wife, and it just really sucks. I think every time we have to go to the tax guy and pay money.
Yeah.
Even though we reserve, I don't know the term of it, where they say we're gonna give you all the money up front, so you don't have to tax us later.
Right.
You think you're okay with that, but then at the end of the year, you still owe taxes because you don't own a property or something that you could write off.
Right.
And then to top it all off, in your own community that you live in, you want to really support your own community, but you think, wow, am I gonna spend 10.25% tax in my community, or am I going to go to the community next door?
That's
worth 7 point something and spend my money there.
That's the other thing, Andy.
It's a challenge,
That's the other thing. I mean, just like we were talking about before we went live, how Chino, just a neighboring city, 7.75% tax. Here in Pomona, we pay some of the highest, over 10%. We pay some of the highest taxes in the state of California, with the median income of, that's much less than Chino.
Yeah.
Right? Much less than Chino. So how does that work? How does that work? What's going on with that, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, it's the world that we live in. Again, it certainly seems that the rich or the well-off, they know how to navigate the system, so they manipulate the system, by not paying as much taxes as, this lower bracket kind of things, because we don't have this access to this knowledge, on
that's it, man.
How do they navigate the financial system? So
it's access to
we
knowledge.
get taxed more than rich people, from what I understand.
Yeah.
And that's because they know how to maneuver.
Right.
And so
but
we live in a world that kind of sucks. We save money, we're taxed. We spend money, we're taxed. We make money, we're taxed. Everything is taxed. And I wish I knew the exact number, but they say that we work maybe 3 months out of the year. That just goes to
straight to taxes.
Yeah, 3 months out of my time.
Third of your income, man.
My
Absolutely.
third of my income. So I'm working 3 months just
to pay the taxes.
That's
and then you think that it wouldn't be so bad either. Another kind of argument for taxing would be, like, if we were able to solve some of the problems.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? But what we found, the biggest complaint that I have, in my most recent appearances before the city council, was this massive payout we did to the city manager. I don't know if you read about that, but they paid him $600,000 to go away, right? And then his contract.
That hurt my feelings when I heard that. I don't make over $100,000 a year.
Oh my gosh!
And so
you pay somebody $600,000 to go away.
To go away,
right?
And that that's like 6 years of my work. That it blows my mind. But
it's mind blowing, and you think, like, okay, if you have the stewards of our finances, heading this whole situation up. And they're saying that, okay, they're, what was reported in La Voz, I need to say that, La Nueva Voz does a magnificent job of really getting to the heart of the issue on this particular situation with the city manager, and talking about that his contract said that if he was fired, he would get a severance pay.
Right.
But that if he retired, he wouldn't get a severance pay and he would go on our payroll, on our retirement payroll, right? What the city, the stewards of our finances, also known as the mayor and the city council, did in this situation was they gave him both. Anyway, even though his contract said he can only have one or the other, they ended up giving him both. And then, in talking to the reporter for the Daily Bulletin, who also covered this issue, was saying that there was some contradictory information that came out of, like, when did he leave? Did he not leave? They were told that he did leave, that he didn't leave. So there was something going on there, right? Something that is
you have to be in the inner circle to know, huh?
Right. Yeah. And even David Allen, the famous columnist for the Daily Bulletin, came back and said, we'll never know, right? Because that's how the city, that's how they do things. And so the new hire for the city manager,
Anita.
I love her, man. I think
I worked with her for years.
Yeah, I think she's fantastic individual. Again, going back to but on the contract side of things, it's like they're going to pay her $12,000 more than the other guy. Oh. And it's only $15,000 less than the city manager makes in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Who runs a population of 3 million people. We're only 140,000, right?
See, I didn't know any of those numbers. And
so
hearing them, it just...
You seem like, I wonder, what's going on, right?
Yeah,
So we're like, okay, you guys are supposed to be the, good stewards of our finances. But it looks like, it's kind of like an open, checkbook here, man, and just kind of going willy-nilly, combined with no innovation, in terms of like the farming thing I talked about, and the, let's recycle some of Pomona's dollars, let's dedicate a certain percentage of our spend towards Pomona businesses, which everybody benefits there.
It sounds reasonable.
Why, why do we need this tax, and why are these people getting on board, with this tax? And then you add to that, Andy, which is, one of the reasons why I'm here today, is the misleading aspect of Measure P on the ballot itself, where you have in one section, there are, obviously I'm against the Measure P, which is continuing the tax the way that it is.
Larry, before we get into Measure P, we're going to take a quick little station break, and then when we come back, perhaps you can read us a little bit about Measure P.
Sure.
And we'll go a little more into details.
Okay, man.
All right.
Sounds good.
All right, we'll be right back. Okay, hey, we're back with Larry Ortega live right here in 3P Studios in downtown Pomona, Art Colony. And today we're learning about Measure P, getting into a little civic engagement. So tell us a little bit more about Measure P, Larry.
Right, yeah. So Measure P, as it reads right now, it says, in 2018, Pomona increased the sales tax percentage by a quarter with the promise of improving the police 911 services and reducing homelessness and repairing streets. Right? So that's the first part of it. So if we just stop right there, right?
Okay.
And we say, okay, how are we doing in that space, right? How do we do in the first 4 years, right?
Well, I got to tell you, it's a tough one. The homelessness, it's increasing everywhere, not just Pomona. And I think that's a much deeper issue, of course. But being around Pomona, and interviewing homeless people, it certainly seems that many of the homeless people are not from our community, but they come from outside our community and find a home here. So that's one. Okay, it doesn't seem as a normal guy that homelessness has been reduced on account of this monies. The second one was...
They're repairing the streets.
Well, I've been seeing some repairs lately, but there's still a lot of streets that need repairing. And again, I don't know how that goes.
Well, I got as a cyclist, as an avid cyclist, and I ride my bike, throughout Pomona all the time, wherever I can, to meetings, wherever I'm going. I can tell you that we're not doing too good. We're not doing too good in that space. And adding a little bit more, daylight to that situation. We got some monies from a grant that we're given. The city was giving COVID dollars. I want to say $45 million. Yeah. I'm not sure if that's the exact number, but somewhere in that range, $45 to $60 million the city was given as a kind of to shore up the COVID challenges. Yeah. Well, it turned out that those monies went to repair. That was the money went to repair Philadelphia Street.
Okay.
So the tax. You see what I'm saying? The tax increase.
Right.
Was not used to repair the Philadelphia Street. It was an outside source of money that was used to repair Philadelphia Street. And the challenge was is that
you don't know these things. Those insider these would happen. I mean, this is not just average information that everyone knows.
Right.
How the money is shuffled from one pot to the other because it needs to be spent in a time, and it's real. It's complicated. To say the least.
It is very complicated, and you think about, okay, well, you think about Philadelphia was repaired, and then you look at Mission, where was that COVID money, or was that
Mission Quarter, that all that work has been done, right?
Or was that
tax?
COVID money, or was that this tax money, right?
Yeah.
So we don't know, right? Then we should know. They should be kind of transparent as to what happened.
Right.
But again, getting back to my avid cyclist, story.
You see the streets on a daily basis.
Oh,
there's
my
much
gosh,
to be desired.
Man.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go down, Gary Avenue coming down Mission, or if you go down White Avenue coming down from Mission.
And 2018, this is 2024, so it's been
some time, man.
It's been some time. So we got 2 marks down. Homelessness, no, it hasn't decreased.
Right.
Repairs.
Right.
Not as good as we think they should be.
Right.
What's the next one?
And then improving police and 911 services. I don't know that was actually a challenge before. I don't know that. I don't know what the measurements are.
Yes.
I'm not sure. I can tell you this though, from the police standpoint, we are, because of the community, the neighborhood. We brought back what we call the old neighborhood watch program for my immediate community. And before we started meeting, we had, I think they were saying maybe 30 cars a month that were being dropped off on a side street where I live, And there's even cats that were actually, stripping the cars right there on the side of the street, and it was just wow. And it was pretty bad, and there was always break-ins and, all this stuff. We started meeting, we started coming together, and with the help of the police, right, they ushered in certain protocols in terms of what we could do, how to do it, giving us key numbers and stuff like that.
Innovation.
And that innovation and that community partnership, right, that we created had caused a significant drop in crime.
Awesome.
And so that relationship, not necessarily related to more money, right? But more on the lines of people, talking to each other and then engaging the police. How can we help you guys do your job better? Because here's our concern. Right. And so we started talking more, because usually, those relationships, on average, I would say they don't exist, right? Yeah. And I know that recently, the church group at what's the name of that church group that's right there on Phillips, that's run by Benales?
Oh yes, okay.
Danny, is it Danny? No,
Eddie Benales.
Eddie Benales' church, right? No. So he had, I forget the name of the church, but they recently had a neighborhood watch meeting.
Yeah.
And I was talking to the lieutenant who helped us. And she was saying she was there at that one. She used our neighborhood watch as an example, hey, crime went way down because the people are starting to talk to each other, and it's just more open. Now, does that mean that we need more money?
Gangs for Grace.
Okay, yeah,
that's his
from the book, right?
No. I'm sorry. Please excuse me. Eddie Benales, the church, I think it's called Gangs for Grace, or Gangs to Grace.
I don't know. It was a program. That was the book. Yeah. That was a book that he wrote.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
from Gangsta Grace, and
It just popped up in my head.
right?
I'm sorry about that, Larry. Go ahead.
No,
Keep it going.
I don't remember what it is, but anyway, they're meeting, and my thing is that I think that's what community needs to do. We all need to start talking. And I got the idea from my neighbor. He was like, he lives right there where the DMV is at.
Yes.
Right there, that little cul-de-sac.
Uh-huh.
And he was saying that there was a lot of stuff happening, that wasn't cool. And, the apartments are right there, across the street from the DMV. So, it can be, challenging situation. And he says that when him and his neighbors, they got together and they just simply started texting each other. So when somebody crazy was coming around that was trying to maybe get in the cars or whatever, they would just do a mass text to the neighbors, and then they would all come out and they would all take a look and say, hey, man, or, like, why are you trying to get crazy, whatever. And they would be enough for that person to say, oh, man, I'm being watched. I better get out of there. Yeah. So you just see neighbors kind of taking care of neighbors.
Wonderful.
And that in and of itself is progress to reduce crime, and not going back to the old model was I'll just call the police when I need them. I won't have that relationship with them. And I think just having a better relationship as community, neighbors with the police has really significantly reduced crime in our area. So I don't know that more money is the answer. I know that the police and as far as the budget goes, as far as the general budget, which is, I want to say 140, police and fire get like almost 60% of that.
Right.
You know that, right?
I do know that.
Yeah. So it's a big chunk, and
the reflection on a national level, our federal budget goes a lot towards war and weaponry.
all that, yeah.
So that's
problematic, right? Also
on a large scale or on a small scale,
right?
It would be nice to live in a community or a nation or a state, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
That money would be spent on the well-being of the family and the building of community,
right,
rather than the
right. And I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but what in talking to the council member from Rialto, former Congressman Joe Baca, out in that area, he and I had a conversation last year, and sharing a similar thing. Goes, yeah, that's kind of like what it is, So it's Pomona's not out of whack, I don't think too much in terms of that allocation of budget to its police force, and I'm not here to say that or challenge that in any way.
Right.
But I think that it's important to getting back to this tax, Andy.
Yeah.
To understand that I don't think we got there, man. We haven't got there, in the past 5 years with this increase in tax, and to say that now we want to keep it on permanent. To still have zero results.
And that's only a 0.25%. That's like a quarter percent or tax.
Right. So the city is collecting. It says city's collecting $16 million extra with the 2018 tax measure.
Right.
So that's $16 million that's getting taken out of your pocket, my pocket, my neighbor's pocket, right? Mexico Lindo's pocket, right? So
and again, the way that it's written, I mean, I support all that. I support helping the police department to be better and to fix our streets and to end homelessness. And so, reading that first measure, it says, oh yeah, I could get on board with this. I'll give you some more of my money to fix something. But again, not much has been fixed in the past 6-7 years. Is this money? Are we talking about it? Is more money the solution, or is it doing things differently the solution?
Right, and that's the thing, man. When you look at it, the proponents of this particular tax measure, it's Nora Garcia, who's our council representative for District 3, Tim Sandoval, who's the mayor, and John Nolte, who is the council member for District 1.
They're all good people.
They're all good people, yeah. And their hearts, I believe, I want to believe that are in the right place. They're in support of this tax. However, this on the ballot right here, right? It doesn't show any opponents. Right? And there are opponents, right? So, there's clearly
tell us
opponents.
The other side of Measure P.
Yeah, so there's clearly opponents to it. There's actually 5 that are listed, and I think the challenge with this particular measure, and the public, this is why the public needs to know about this, is that it shows that there are no opponents, and it shows it makes it seem the way that it's worded. Remember we were talking about the wording of the measure?
Yeah. Right.
It makes it seem like 911 services will be taken away.
Yes.
Or be lessened, or there'll be less police response or less street repair, or more homelessness if this tax isn't passed. That's how they're framing it, and it's really not. We've just discussed it right here. It's not. That's not what's happening.
Yes.
And so there's opponents to it, but they're not listed on the actual ballot. And that's
is that purposefully done, or was had to get something in before a certain time for it to be printed? Like I said.
Well, that's the thing. We can't.
I wonder.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. We can't get a straight answer on it. That's the problem.
Right.
Because clearly,
so tell us
on one page, on one page within the ballot booklet, right, in your sample ballot booklet, you can read about the argument against, and those 5 people, and there's more than 5 people. They are listed. Yeah. They are listed. You have Veronica Cabrera, Miguel Vasquez, Rhonda
on the
Bellevue.
Same book.
Yeah.
In one section, there are no opponents to the measure.
Where you're marking yes or no. That's the problem.
Yes, where everyone's going to look at that one.
Yeah, everyone's looking at that one, and very few people go to the kind of the meat of the...
I wonder, only because these are elected officials that are on it for pro, did you have to be an elected official to be on it, to be against, or
no,
they reserve the citizenry, the business owners for another page, or?
Well, no, that's not the case at all. It's not like that. They would have to be listed, and in fact, you have the supporters in this case. It says Nora Garcia, resident, and District 3 City Council member, right? So it has her as being both, but she could just be a resident, or a business owner, or whatever. There's opponents to particular measure. Their name should be listed. The fact that they're not listed is problematic, and what do you call it? I want to try to find the right word. It's misleading. Right? It's misleading when you see. And we're all busy, right? We're trying to figure out. Okay, hey, man, what I feel. Who do I, if you're not engaged like you and I are, where we kind of know what's going on. You're not going to see it. You can say, well, if these 3 council members are for it, might as well go for it.
It's psychological.
So, and you didn't go to the next pages where it talks about the argument against and why it shouldn't be, and that there are people. There's many people that are opposed to keeping that tax. We all saw it as it was initially presented. This Measure P in 2018 was going to be a temporary fix. That's why it had a specific sunset clause, meaning that it was going to go away on a certain date, right? Now they're saying, no, let's make it permanent. And that's just like, for me, Andy, it's just such a cop-out, man. It just seems like, why are we, that should be like the last. And again, it's $16 million out of yours, mine, my neighbors, the businesses' pockets, because now it's a tax, right? That is supposedly going to things that you and I have just concluded have not.
Now, how do they get this tax in the sense where is it like a sales tax that we buy something
with
the money, or
is it part of the sales tax? Yeah, it's part of the sales tax.
So I buy things on Amazon at home.
You still get charged. Yeah, it's part of that.
Then again, that
it's part of Pomona sales tax. Yeah, it goes to
the 10 point.
Right.
What was it? 10 point what?
I'm not sure. 10.25.
So
Pomona sales tax 10.25. Right. Right.
And if I lived in next door Chino and I bought something from Amazon,
7.75.
I would pay a 7.75 sales tax.
Right.
Wow. So
you have a situation where the annual per capita, Pomona's on the argument against, right? And people need to understand this part of it, right? Pomona's population is low income with an annual per capita of $22,000, right? And the sales tax is 10.25. The city services in the streets are, as we've concluded, that they didn't get shored up, over the time frame that they had with this new tax. In fact, other monies that came in were used to actually repair Philadelphia and possibly, the Mission, corridor right there. I don't know that for sure, but it'd be worth looking into. But I know for sure the Philadelphia COVID monies for Philadelphia Street, COVID monies were used to repair that street, not this sales tax increase, right? So then you have Chino Hills that has a per capita of $43,000, like you were saying, more wealthier people, right? and their sales tax is only 7.75%, right? So there's a big disparity there. So it goes to show that more taxation is not the answer, right? It's simply is not the case, and it's something that needs to be scrutinized. And I get it, man. That the proponents of this particular Measure P, they are, they're bombarded, right? They're being told, oh, we got to do this, we got to do this. I respectfully disagree. I respectfully disagree because of the what we just talked about. And then, the work that I've done, around the digital divide, and, I've brought to the doorstep of the city, experts that could create a municipal broadband network. And that's the way to go. We need to create our own broadband network so that we can be competitive with Frontier and Spectrum and bring those prices, normalize those prices down to what other people in the country are paying when they have municipal broadband. So, for example, I think I might have shared some of this last time, but just for the sake of this discussion, there's a city in Far, Texas that's doing municipal broadband. They're offering 500 gigabits up and down, right? Megabits up and down, megabits per second, up and down for $25 a month. $25 a month. 500 up and down, right? Yeah. Chattanooga, Tennessee, if you're on the free and reduced lunch, you get it for free. Yeah. Internet, right?
So it's being done in
it's
other
being
parts of the country.
Done in other parts of the country, and it can be done, but, for whatever reason, California in particularly, is getting the short end of the deal here because
do we have is it because we have lobbyists of big corporations?
Specifically,
donating to campaigns.
Well, absolutely. I mean, you have a situation here
to not allow things like this.
So check this out, man. So $1.83 billion is supposed to come into California from President Biden's initiative around this particular issue, right? Yeah. Called the digital divide, right? So President Biden says, I'm writing a check for $45 billion, right? California is going to get $1.83 billion of those dollars to shore up these challenges. We found out recently in the last couple of months, right, that from Pomona into Baldwin Park, El Monte, into East LA, going down to South LA into Compton, they're not even going to get any of those monies. And the excuse is that we're not ready. We haven't made any plans. Well, you can't make any plans if you don't know the money's there, or if you're not training people like, Monique, right? How to go after this stuff, how to get ready, how to make sure it happens. Yes. Oklahoma's doing it. Louisiana's doing it. Yes. Other parts of the country are getting it done in terms of educating their municipalities on how to take advantage of these monies. But here in California, as you were saying, lobbyists is so powerful, man, that there are muddying the waters, and the way that they've set it up, they have the guy that's from the Department of Technology, right? He used to be with Comcast. He was Comcast public affairs official in San Francisco in the Bay Area, and now he's with the Department of Technology, which is part of this revolving door concept that you may be familiar with, where now you have the corporate guys now in the public sector actually directing where these dollars are going to go, right? And if we're left off of the map or left off of the allocation where the money's supposed to go, he doesn't care, right? That's not his concern, and that's what's my chief complaint with the whole plan that California came up with. Is that the leadership in this space for these monies is not sensitized to what's happening. And the fact that the money exists in the first place, the $1.83 billion exists because Pomona exists, because El Monte exists, because East LA exists, because South LA exists, because Compton exists. The money is there because we exist, right? And get this, if we are not recipients of any of those dollars, then we have failed. And that's what I wrote about. I wrote that in the commentary to the Department of Technology. There was a deadline last month in January. And I said, California's, massive failure, and the name of the grant money from the Biden administration is called BEAD, BEAD, right? California's massive failure in their BEAD plan, right? So if we're not going to get any, El Monte's not going to get any, how do you reconcile that, man? But here's the thing: if Pomona built their own municipal broadband, we can turn what is currently a cost center into a profit center, and there's another mode of revenue that we have. So now you have farming, you have the allocated percentage of the businesses, of their spend, the annual spend to Pomona businesses, and you have municipal broadband. You have three ways of showing up.
We're making solar panels also.
Making solar panels.
We also have, if things work out, the community banking.
Right.
Yeah, in a compassionate city.
In a compassionate city, man. And that's the important thing, that we are compassionate. I think, I'm not here to knock the mayor or anything in terms of, I just think we just need to, make everybody else aware that there's these models that are out there that are very doable. I mean, because they've already been done in other spaces, and we need to do them here.
Well, I think something that needs to probably be done within our society and our community is follow the lead of these lobbyists. They're getting paid to be in the ears of our decision makers that are elected to spend these dollars. The more that we're able to educate our citizens in our community, our neighborhoods, where they can advocate, because they're not lobbying, they're advocating for their needs in comparison to the lobbying of the corporate need, right? So it's really like having a program like this where we have a conversation. We encourage people to learn a little bit more, to ask some questions, because again, this is our community, this is our country, and if we don't do anything about it, then someone will, right?
Exactly, man.
So
yeah, and so that's why, again, getting back to what your program and what you do here, Andy, is so incredibly important, and it's a thing that I'm so happy. You have a beautiful studio here, man. It's a beautiful downtown Pomona. Yeah. And I couldn't be more proud of you and your work and what you're doing here for Pomona, man. I really appreciate you, man. So important.
I appreciate you too, Larry. Again, it's building community together.
Yeah.
There's that quote that says, many hands lighten the load, or, many hands make light work.
Right.
We have all these obstacles within our society and within our community. Not one person has the ability to tackle it, right? But together, again, we want to lift this table up. One person, it'd be tough, but
two
people, 4 round
tough.
Two is a little easier. If we went four, it's no problem at all.
6, no problem.
Just like that neighborhood over there by the DMV.
Yeah.
They did something about it, saying we got a problem.
Right.
Let's all do a little light lifting.
Right.
So not one neighbor has to do all the heavy lifting.
Right.
Right.
And it works, man. I mean, that's just programs and policy that works, and it's hard, trying to navigate this stuff, but at the end of the day, we're all, we're a little bit more knowledgeable.
Yeah.
And we're a little bit more happy about, okay, I'm satisfied. I don't think we need this tax, say, for example. I think there's other ways in which we can get it done, and I support it. Like I say, this is not just me, man. There's all kinds of people talking about the farming thing and so happy to hear about Monique and getting it done with the school district. Oh my gosh, shout out to
and I also
the
think
chamber,
about,
man. That's awesome.
Lopez Urban Farm,
yeah,
again, where the school and the community have gotten together. It seems I have a good feeling that we're on the right trend.
Yeah.
We're on the right path. But again, it takes community members that live here to champion good ideas.
Yeah.
Of course, and hold those that are in charge accountable to the ideas of the community that are vital to making this community grow. Right.
Yeah. And there's another spot too that I'll bring to your attention. Samias Community Center is right there on White and 9th. Yes. Right. Yes. So they're doing a bang up job, and they got a little technology center that's coming out. Going to be offering services there.
That's
and
right.
So,
I just love it as we kind of come to a close, seeing Pomona the future, where it was an agricultural hub 100 years ago, now to bring back, the goddess of Pomona, of abundance, right, and fruitfulness, of feeding our families with good food,
Right.
but also having an innovative technological side that keeps us, going into the
man.
future, right?
Absolutely, man.
yeah.
And being knowledgeable, man, by having podcasts like Andy Quinones and Pomona
Hey,
Promise,
leave some
man.
comments. What do you think?
Yeah,
How
what do you
wanna see
guys
your
think
city,
about this, man?
Go towards the future. What's your thoughts about Measure P? Leave it in the comments.
Yes.
Don't forget to like and subscribe, and you hear good people coming on to the 3P Studios and sharing what's happening here in Pomona.
Yeah. Shout out to Andy.
All right,
Yeah,
Larry
baby.
Ortega.
Thank you,
hey,
man.
Thanks for coming on. And,
All right, brother.
look
Thank
forward
you
to
for
seeing
giving me the
again.
shot, man. Appreciate that. Yeah. All right. And all the best, man. Peace.
Peace, Pomona.
Peace.